Hello and welcome to the 650 kilometer review of the veteran Sherman electric unicycle. Wow, been stacking the miles on massively to get here in such a short amount of time. What a wheel it has been. Again, from the original review you may have seen, so if you haven't seen it already, we've done the unboxing and the range test. And then there's another video, the 250 kilometer review. So go and check those out if you haven't already. You do need to go and see those to get the full picture of what this wheel's about. It'll give you all the information. Watch the first video, then watch the second, then come on to this one. This wheel has performed absolutely flawlessly. You can probably tell from the first video, my impressions of it are just best wheel I've ever ridden, is what I said in that video, and it still remains that way. It's just absolutely incredible, and it puts a smile on your face every time you ride it. Quickly going back over just a couple of the points that are the disadvantages. So one of the disadvantages of this is its weight, of course. That is a problem. If you're trying to lug this thing around, very, very difficult. Not going to be your getting on and off the tube, going down multiple flights of stairs. That's not the machine for you. So if you're not carrying it around a lot in your day, if you're using one already, if you're a first-time rider, if you're planning on doing that, then you're not going to be able to. It's possible to pick it up. It's just a bit too heavy. And of course the price. So there's those two things. So the price puts this in a bracket above and beyond the other wheels. The closest one to it would be the Gotway Monster in terms of price. And so it prices a lot of people out of the bracket anyway that this is in. So I've had some quite big adventures on this, as you can imagine. Some of the days I've been riding, you know, sort of doing 70 miles, trying to stack a load of miles on it to get it up. Because we've got so many machines coming at this point in time. We've got the KSS 18 that I'm doing a review on. We're going to have the V11 coming in imminently, and then we've got this one. And all of those I'm supposed to put 1,000 kilometers on. And I'm sure you guys want the reviews sooner rather than later. So, yes. So I'm almost at 700 kilometers on this now. And I've had no issues whatsoever. So its handling remains the same. There's been no failures whatsoever. With the tyre having 650, 700 kilometers on it, it's not lost any of its stickiness, any of its agility. It's just spot on. And with the batteries being even Stevens on each side and everything being weighted perfectly, what I've found is on the off-road trails, if you hit a route to get some air, or more importantly, if you hit something accidentally or you're forced into a situation, if the wheel bounces off the ground, it's lovely and balanced. So bringing it back into line is no problem at all. The front and rear lights, all still working. Everything's working exactly as it should be. I've had no issues with pedal dips and scraping my foot plates. I've left it in the condition it's in because I wanted to highlight where dust gathers, etc. And I'm doing the same on other wheels as well. So I haven't cleaned this at all during all that time. I've been out in some really bad weather. Really bad weather. I got hit by one of the biggest storms I think I've ever ridden in. And therein, a problem occurred. So the top of the wheel has the LCD display on it, as discussed in previous videos. The early releases of these have it unappealing from the top. They're supposed to be resolving this in the later releases. But some water did get underneath and it dripped down, only a tiny little bit. It dripped down and it went into the power button here. Okay, well, been riding in one heck of a storm. It's all misty. It hasn't done it any good at all, and I can't power down the machine now. Will not turn off. And the outer there has gone a bit grey. That's nice and strong. We've got a bit of misting here and here. So it obviously does not like that at all. Sadly, probably doesn't help. This keeps peeling back up again, so this definitely needs sealing down. Yeah, but nothing. That works. Turn the light on now. That's all good. The menu works. It's all good. She never push buttons when something's circling out. Oh, by the way, it works fine. It's just the power button. Got a lot of dirt in it now. That's what that noise is. It works fine. It doesn't like water in the control panel. And I couldn't notice anything wrong at all. So that was good. But what I will say is when I stopped underneath a tree, because it was, it's just stupid weather, really stupid, asking for trouble. And I kind of knew that. It was a bit of stupidity and lack of having anything to do anything about it whilst I was out. Knowing that actually all I needed to do myself was stick this down, like put a bead of silicone around it, or I'd get a gasket and put it around it and stick that back down, and there would be zero issues. Despite my feeble attempts whilst I was out on the field, as it were, to actually stick this back down. Of course, it wasn't going to, because it wasn't stuck down from day one properly. When I stopped, it was beeping. I was like, okay. So ad hoc beeping, not anything that would make sense. I was thinking, water's got into this. And so I rowed back very gingerly, thinking, if there's water just pouring down into this thing, at some point it's going to cut off, and I'm going to come off. So I went back about 5 or 6 miles an hour. The storm did not stop at all, so I carried on riding through it, and I was thinking, this is a bit of a disaster, not that I can do. I had nothing on me that I could do anything with to stop it getting into this panel here. So eventually, so probably about 40 minutes to an hour of riding later, I got a lift, picked up. No way of turning the machine off at this point, so when I went to go and press the power button, which was a bit, if stuff gets wet, you just don't press any buttons, you remove all the power from it. So I was a bit reluctant to try and even turn the thing off. Anyway, did go for it, and it just didn't work. It just stayed switched on, and then the display started fading, sort of fading in and out. I was like, oh, I'm gonna kill this wheel. I'm gonna kill this wheel. So anyway, it wouldn't power down. So it's stuck on, and the only way to do that is to gently lower it onto its side, and then of course it shuts off because of the safety feature built in for when it falls on its side. So that's pretty good. So there's always a way around it. So lay it on its side, it was still on, it never switched off. That night I basically put it upside down, so I rested it on here. I just removed the panel off the top there, the actual just a sticky bit over the top. Removed that, left it overnight, came down in the morning, and it still didn't work. It's like, okay. Right, I thought to myself, I've still got to stack miles on this thing, and it won't power on. Everything else was functioning absolutely fine. So I took out the 4 screws here, removed this, to have a look inside. There's 2 boards. There's the LCD board, and then there's the main control board that does everything else. This is just a little control panel with 4 buttons on it that just messes around with what's on the main control board. And so it's just literally a control panel. It's an LCD display. It's about so big, and it just sits here. Everything else massively, perfectly dry, not a sign, look brand new, no issues whatsoever. So even despite, there's some good things that come out of this, because despite the water ingress, nothing had touched the board, the main control board. Nothing, there was no problem at all. This part here, because of no mudguard, it flies up and lands here. Not as bad, because a lot of it hits the rear light, I found, and you'll see with the footage I'm showing you now, this is 700 basically kilometers of mess, and it's actually not too bad. I've seen worse on the Monster without a mudguard. It just sprays everywhere, so literally all over the whole machine, because it comes right over the top of it and everywhere. This is hit up here and mainly hits the light and the plastic housing. So the mud splatter, despite there being none at the top, you can see there's hardly any. There was little grains in the recess in here. So yeah, that if you had a mudguard on, that would solve all those issues in terms of the little bits getting through this. So there was no damage to the control board. That was good. Despite there having a front vent there and a rear vent, there was the storm was massive. It's not like any light rain. It was silly, even being out in that. I think in any machine, I would be stood there thinking, this ain't great. Shouldn't be riding in this. But anyway, I was out in the middle of nowhere. The front vent, actually, the way this is designed is pretty smart, to be fair. The front vent, I was thinking, that's going to slam rain in through, and it's going to go over the control board because that vent's cooling. But actually, what it is a separate shelf. So they've put a shelf along here. The board sits on top, and then the heat sink goes down into the next level, as it were, like the next chamber of this paneling. And so actually, this front vent is underneath the electronics, and the air flows over a simple aluminium block, which is the cooling, the heat sink. And so it flows through, and irrespective of water ingress, even if it did, and I couldn't see any, even if it did, because it's hidden behind this front light, even if it did get in there, it's nowhere near the control board. It's like, oh wow, okay, that's neat. So my concern when I was riding, I was looking at that thinking, oh dear, and I was thinking, oh dear. And there was nothing founded in that at all because it's separated out by a chamber. So that is a very good design. The second thing to bring out of it is actually it didn't cut off at the end of the day. If I'd known that at the end, I'd have bombed back home at whatever speed. But actually, there was no watering goes to the main control board. It literally playing havoc with the button. And so what it had done is it hid where the water was. It was creating a contact, and it was thinking that it was just on all the time. So it was being forced on by water being in the micro switch, as it turns out. And so amazingly, Heath Robinson styled approach after testing loads of different components and having a limited amount of tools at home. I'd taken this off and I removed the LCD display because the wheel wouldn't boot down, don't forget. So I disconnected the batteries overnight when I stuck it upside down, but when I tried to build it back up so I could use it the following day, I left it all on. When I disconnected the LCD display, it powered down. I was like, oh, okay, so I can power it on and off by disconnecting the display. I'll just get a new display. So get a new display, it'll all be fine, not a problem. But before I did that, I thought, well, that's written off anyway. And so I know it's this micro switch. All the other switches, by the way, worked, no problem whatsoever. So everything worked. The power button just didn't. What I did then is I went to try and find some WD-40, spread a tiny little bit in the micro switch, thinking might be a chance, if nothing else, that it blows the water out of it. If the theory is correct. I didn't have any WD-40. I used door hinge oil, a tiny little speck of door hinge oil, and let it drop down into the micro switch. Waited for it to soak in a little bit and then pressed it on and off a couple of times, reconnected it, and it worked. I was like, you're kidding me. What a tank. It's like trying to find things that you've got around you. I was saying the analogy like it's like a Land Rover. I didn't think that was actually going to work. I thought the boards are right off. Yeah, it's got to go in the bin anyway. I've got nothing to lose here. And whilst I'm waiting for the part to come in, I might as well play about with this. My next step was to unsolder the micro switch. Anyway, put a drop of oil on it, and it worked. I was like, woohoo! So I put it back together again, and I've been riding it ever since. So I've probably done another 300 kilometers since then. And that switch has been pressed, I don't know, hundreds of times, I would have thought, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, every little journey in between, and I've been turning it on and off. It's just amazing. So despite this terrible water damage, I put a tiny little drop of oil in there. All of this, all of that saga, as it were, very short one, is that if this is sealed correctly, as in sealed, because at the moment it's just not, because it's all, it's all that. If that's sealed, you've got zero issues. So if you've got one of these and you've got an early release one of these, you just make sure that that's sealed down. Either take it back to the person you bought it for to get them to do it properly for you, because ours won't leave like this. That's not going to happen. If we get them in, hopefully they're all resolved, because it's a known thing that basically is so simple that the glued gasket on here that they've put on just isn't strong enough to stick it down. So ensure that's stuck down. If you're thinking, if you've got it and 6 months later or 12 months later it's showing signs of popping back up, you just seal it back down again, okay? So don't be daft like me and think, I'll tell you what, I'll go out anyway, because my only option really at the time was to stop and get a lift and say, can you come and collect me? Which I don't like doing, and it would have been a first. So yeah, make sure that's stuck down properly is what I'm saying there. Simple as that. So with my drop of oil on the old tank as it is, I've been rolling again for about 300 kilometers. I've had no issues whatsoever with it. It's been spot on. It's been absolutely amazing. And it makes me chuckle even more, the fact that I was able to put a tiny bit of drop of oil, which I wouldn't recommend, by the way, at all, to put on a micro switch. It just works. I had nothing to lose. Incredible. So it's been really, really good. Having the dual charge ports has enabled me to, that take so much amperage, has enabled me to get here as quick as I have done. And so this is a machine that it just hasn't shown any sign whatsoever of having any issues. So what I would say, so if I was going to do something, I think the mudguard is going to resolve that. But irrespective, I think what I'd do is I'd try and seal around this top part as well as extra security, just for the sake of it. It is recessed, so the way that this fits on, it is recessed. There is a channel that stops the water just going in, and it runs down and out. But I think I would do that. I think I would seal it up. You don't want to put bags of the stuff on, but you just want to create a beading around just this top edge, really, here. Everything else is falling below anything of any importance. So that's been spot on. One thing I do want to check is the motor cable. And as with all these things, what tends to happen is people rush to get wheels in. So when the first batch is released, they rush to get them in. And we've seen it with the KSS 18 that was testing. It was nowhere near ready. They kind of thought it was ready. And then once you actually get into users' hands like myself, and then we push it and we utilize it like we usually would do, and we suddenly take it 650 kilometers in a couple of weeks, it pulls out all these issues. So that was delayed because of that, and a better machine is going to come out of it. So we're same with this. So you've got that panel will be resolved. It's just real simple. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to do it. A child could do it. There's that, but there's also reports of melting motor cables. Now that sounds terrible. Sounds like it's going to be the worst thing ever, but it's not the first time it's ever happened in an electric unicycle. And what it is, you've got 3 cables coming out, 3 motor cables coming out. They're quite heavy-duty cables, and they are in a plastic sheath to protect them, to keep them nice and neat. And they run up and then go to the control board and come out the top into 3, and they sit in the control board. Fine, no usual. You never usually have any problems with those. But because of the amount of power this thing pushes out, those are grouped together, then they can get hot. Now what that can do is, of course, it can melt the outside of the wrapping of the cable because it can't tolerate that high heat. And so you get a melting of that thing. Basically, what needs to happen there, and what they've done going on out, so they've modified that. It's not something they ever came across in their testing, is that you separate out, they should be separated out, the 3 cables, and then they have a heat wrap around each individual cable that then runs out. It's a little bit, it's not messier, but it takes up more space, doesn't it? If you wrap 3 cables together, you get a real fine cable that runs up into the control board, nice and neat. If you separate those out, they're about that wide altogether. So those being separated out, that's another really simple solution. So there's 2 things there. There's the simple gasket, and there's the simple motor cable overheating. But I am going to open it up, and I haven't looked at this at all. I'm going to open it up and have a look to see if mine's had that, because it may very well have done. This thing has, where we live here, loads and loads of hills. This has done a lot of hills. In fact, we've been up May Hill, is its name, and it's a huge hill. It can be seen from 50 miles in all directions. That's how pronounced it is. We've been up there. So we're going to have a quick look just to see, live as it were, whether or not, I mean, I haven't looked inside, so whether or not this motor cable has suffered the same issue with the wrapping around the 3 motor cables. Because in the same way as I haven't experienced any issue with pedal dit whatsoever after covering a huge amount of miles, it may be that this problem is just for a very small number of people. So easy to work out, really. If the only way you can have a lot of heat is by pulling a lot of amps. If you're really, really heavy, then you're going to pull a lot of amps because it's got to move a huge person on top. If you are pushing it to its absolute maximum speed, then that's going to produce, you're going to be pulling a lot of amps, and that's going to produce a lot of heat. Okay. What do I see? Oh my goodness. There's nothing wrong. Surprise, surprise. Should I turn this around? I'll use my mobile phone to film this. It's going to be easier than moving this thing around. So there you go. Nothing wrong whatsoever with that. That is very clearly fine. Also important to note, there is not a speck of dirt or anything inside this housing. That is pristine, and despite what this has been through, that is pretty impressive. Yeah, likelihood then is it's going to be in extreme cases. If you're pushing it to the upper speed, then you're probably going to find that you've got issues. But don't do that. Stop doing that. Stop going flat out everywhere. So you're going to end up in huge load of problems. And that moves me on to my next point once I've put this back on. Really, really important point with this wheel. I think it's great that a wheel can go as fast as this in terms of its available power. There's other wheels that get close, like the Gotway stuff, the M Super Pro. They can get to that speed. But the point being is that don't do it. It's really, really important you don't. It's great that they do it. And what it does is it creates a buffer where you can dial it down to, I mean, incredible speeds of about 30 miles an hour is pretty flipping fast. And there's going to be riders out there going, oh no, it's not 30, 35 miles an hour. I'm beeping at 35 and I want to go faster. you experience a fall and you're going to seriously injure yourself. And if you're in that very small minority that's got out of a crash at that sort of speed and you haven't injured yourself, I don't care, I really don't. And I'm deadly serious about this, is that what's going to happen is, and it will happen at some point, if we don't all as a community work together at keeping speeds down, regardless of how safe, I mean, this wheel feels perfectly safe at a high speed. It's just not if you come off and it goes into someone. I made this point in the previous video. It will absolutely end in disaster if we're gunning it about, weaving across all the roads. You've only got to hit a pothole or some diesel that's been spilt and you're off. And this thing is so well balanced and has such mass on it, it might even stay upright. The consequence of that is that it will carry on rolling, and it will carry on rolling at about 35, 40, up to 45 miles an hour. And that's a serious, serious problem. And if we have a single instant of that happening, if one person does something silly, the whole lot comes tumbling down. And it's not all, the blame is not on the shoulders of this wheel, because there's many wheels before it. The issue is this is so well balanced and such a joy to ride that it would be very easy to just jack this up to its maximum speed and go and have some serious fun. And so my recommendation is do not do that on the roads, certainly of Great Britain, because it will come tumbling down and none of us will be able to go out after that. And do it on trails where there's no one around. Now, the important thing to remember is that if there's no one around, if you can't see around a corner, you don't know if there's no one around. So the other thing with this thing is a hooligan, basically. It makes you feel like, sweet, I'm going to go out, and it really does pump you up. The tyre noise here, but it just makes you think this is such a beast, and you're enjoying yourself, and you're not trying to do anything wrong. But ultimately, we have one slip up, and we're in major problems. With this, if you can't see around a bend, it's just like if you've done a motorcycle test, everything's pre-planned. So you're always looking ahead. If you can't see around that corner, then you just got to assume that there's a tractor parked up or there's someone stood there with a small child, anything like that, or a small puppy around the corner, and just assume that's the case. And one thing I've found myself on the roads, because it's just such a trooper, I've been on the roads and I've not jacked this up to, I've not even gone there. I've not even gone there with this machine up to its maximum speed, because that's not a world I'm not going to enter into. It's just no point. Literally no point. Yes, it would be a laugh, but I'm not willing to risk everything just for a laugh. So I haven't gone there. But when you go around a corner, it's a good point I thought of yesterday, in fact, just before I finished this 650, is that I'm going around a corner and I'm doing what I did on the motorbike, which is get fairly close to the hedge. And you lean in and you're whipping around and then you pull back out and off you go. On a motorbike, that's dangerous enough. But you've always got the option of having, you've got a rear wheel and you've got your front handlebars. You can jack that thing out of a corner pretty quick, despite the speed. So if you come in a corner and someone's there, you can do that, and at least you take yourself away from the situation. Now with wheels, you can't do that. You can't suddenly jack your way out of a situation. It takes time. And so if you come around a corner and someone's just stood there, or there's some part right there on a blind bend because their car conked out or something, you can't suddenly twist yourself out of that situation. You just, the braking won't be there, especially if you're going at a really high speed. And certainly if you've taken this thing up to its maximum, say, don't do it. But if you did, you're not going to brake in time. If you come in a blind corner, you're going to go straight into someone. Because you can't jack it out rigidly, is what I'm saying. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Motorbike, boom, you can just pull it and it'll go, and the back wheel will follow you around and off you go. And you're like, oh, that was close. With this, it's like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, and you can't get out quick enough. It's not reactionary enough because of the gyroscopic effect that you've got already and the weight of the thing. And it really does apply to all wheels once you take it up to a certain speed. You can't just take evasive action, basically. Car, you can turn the steering wheel, and those wheels turn, and it makes an immediate turn. Whereas, of course, with this, you can't, because you'd fly off that way. If you could turn this hard and quick, you just fly off, and the wheel then would be rolling on its own. So that's a word of warning that this thing pumps you up and makes you feel like you're on this tank, funnily enough. The road noise and everything, the whole atmosphere of the thing is just wanting you and willing you to be a silly Billy. And so it's not the wheel's fault, it's our emotions that get involved with these things, and the want for a rush that this can give. But as long as we ride sensibly, we should be fine. So we'll probably be putting in with this one a little warning leaflet above and beyond all the warning leaflets we got. We've already put 2 in, and people still don't listen. So on this one, it's probably going to be placed on here. So you actually read it and just say, look, it is a community effort. And I mean, you can go fast on it. You can jack it up on, well, you can do it whenever you want. But I'm saying, please don't. On the trails and stuff, but you've got to know, you've got to be able to see ahead and go, yeah, there's no one there. There's not going to be any bikes coming down off other trails that you're going to suddenly have to stop on. And then you could open it up. You can get that thrill, put it that way, on private land or elsewhere on trails that are completely abandoned and no one's there, and you can have some real fun. But it does plenty of where it's at anyway. So that's a cautionary word of warning, basically, is this thing is just awesome. Anything I would change? To summarise, to sort of end it off, is there anything I would change? Well, panel, obviously, that's got to be stuck down. And we can always think of ways that things could be better. I was thinking underneath these switches, you could almost have, rather than it dipping down into the micro switch, actually have it raised up, which would mean a different micro switch with a longer operating bar in the middle of it. But you could have it actually raised up, even if it's by like 0.5 mil. So then it would be like a secondary cover off. So if your gasket failed around the outside, it would actually not allow water ingress anyway. Because nothing can really get under it. It's so thin, that level of water. But if anyone knows water and electricity, it will find places to cause issues on any wheel. But on here, it does get under. In the last video, I said that the water will sit on top, and because of the speed, it will push it off. When I tested that, it doesn't. It basically sits on top. And obviously, as soon as it hits the edge, it rolls off, but you've got it sat here and the wind doesn't hit it anyway. And because it's been kept level all the time, it just sits there. So I would make sure that is fully sealed down. It should be from going here on out. If it's raising up on yours, because you've got some early release, it's not done properly, then you're going to have to fix that and sort that out if you want to go in any rain. And that's really it. I've got nothing to say against this machine. Still, I haven't. The usability of it is just incredible. The 2 ports, be able to charge at 10 amps. Foot plates, they haven't really worn down at all. They've made no difference. I had the initial bit of wearing on the toe end, but it's actually, they've stayed fine. Haven't really scraped them, they're pretty pristine. In fact, I'll wipe them down now, and you'll see, I'll put a bit of video up, show you actually what they look like because of this pedal dip. Everything gets laser focused online, and so all you hear now is about pedal dip, and it needs to be resolved. I'm going to film and show you what my foot plates look like at almost 700 kilometers. And I can say no more than that, really. It's like the melted cable. Okay, I haven't got that. Sorry that I haven't found the problem with it, because I've kind of had a little bit of, only off a few people, but it's like, well, you must have experienced it. And it's like, I haven't. And this thing's been pinned, and it's been taken on some really, really bad trails. You know, you guys have seen what I ride like. I'm hardly just tooting along at 10 miles an hour on nice marble finished flooring. This thing has been through it, trust me, because I'm trying to find a fault with it. I really am. And I was like, yes, you've got a weakness. Look, here, quick, let's focus on that. So mudguard, that's the thing I definitely have. So mudguard on there, that should be resolved. Simple solutions, that's the thing. It's not like something that trips it up. So glad they got an early release. I'm so glad, because the customers that get it from us, we're going to have these resolved. That's not going to be an issue. And Veteran themselves said they're going to sort this out, and then they're actually going to separate the cables out. I'm not sure there's really a need, but because they know about it, I think they're going to do it anyway. I'll show you the stuff actually that's going to be put on, to show you how simple this solution is. There's the stuff. Simple heat wrap essentially, that just sits there and separates out the cables. It's like a sheath that goes over. Really straightforward. I don't think you even need to disconnect it from the control board. You just take the outer wrapping of the cable off. You slice down it, make sure you don't cut into any of the cables, and then you just separate them out from as they come out of the axle. They come through the axle, the cables. And then you slip down here and you just weave it around. Done. Real simple solution. Separates the cables, stops that extra bit of heat. But I have to say, this has been through it all. Mine's unaffected by it. Riding in temperatures up to sort of 24, 25. Yesterday was quite hot, and it was pushed yesterday. It's had ample opportunity to go wrong. It just hasn't. Same with the foot plates. So yeah, putting a mudguard on, and then this beading around this thing here, the very top part of the panel, would probably do that because you might as well, why not? Never need to actually remove it. So the silicon beading you put it on, it's like a one-time job, unless you have to do any maintenance. So that's what I would do. It would be the amount of stuff falling on here and being whipped over would reduce with the mudguard. So, but it needs a mudguard. Come winter, get after a mudguard because you don't want to get to work with, yeah, making like you messed yourself, do you really? They are coming out with a mudguard, just to answer that. So that is actually happening, and a seat. So they got both. So I'll see you on the 1,000 kilometer final review on this wheel, and I can't see having any issues whatsoever with it. It's been a trooper so far, so we'll see where we go with that. Yeah, that's basically it, and I'm riding it trying to find issues for you guys. So I think I've covered pretty much everything. I've tried to slant it as much as laser focusing on the glue, mudguard and the motor cable to try and bring an element of doom and gloom into it. But really, it's like with me, even though I wrecked it, I put a drop of oil on it. I mean, how simple was that? I didn't think I was going to work, to be fair, and it fine, came back to life, it's been fine ever since. So yeah, she keeps on ticking, and I will come back and let you know. And I suspect though I'll get to 1,000 kilometers in the next week, and I'll be doing the final review and saying, yep, same as video one, love it, brilliant wheel, lush. If you can afford it and you're built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, then get one.